Welcome again, scholars. In this video, you are being asked to find the measure of x. In our previous videos, we have mentioned oftentimes that it is important when we are dealing with parallel lines and their transversals to know those angle pairs that are formed. What are those angle relationships? That will help us to find any missing angle. All right, so in this example, I can immediately get confused because of the placement of the lines. We're used to seeing our parallel lines looking like this, looking like horizontal and a vertical, just passing through. But here, the lines are a little bit drawn in a different way. But don't get yourselves confused. Just know that once you know where your parallel lines, what your parallel lines are, they are lines that can never touch. You can see that these two lines here are my parallel lines. All right, and this here is my transversal. So if it helps you to draw, to highlight a transversal, that might be a good idea, because once I highlighted this transversal, I can see what is my placement of the angle that is given, which is 80 degrees, and my missing angle, which is x. There's no one way to do this. There's several ways that I can do this, and I'm going to show you several different ways that I can find my x. The first thing I would notice if I know my angle pairs is that there's a relationship between 80 degrees and that angle x. I can see that 80 is on the right side of my transversal and x is on my left side of my transversal. So they're on alternate sides. They are on alternate sides of my transversal. Okay, that is a word that we know already from our angle pairs and the relationships. So one is on the right, one is on the left, and so they are on the alternate side. I also see that they are also inside of my parallel lines. Look at the parallel lines. Look at the parallel lines. You can see that they're inside the parallel lines. And there's another word that we know, and that is interior. And immediately, I can see that I've been able to identify the angle pairs. That 80 is used to relate to x, and alternate interior angles tells me that these two angles are congruent. 80 is congruent to x by the reason of alternate interior angles. All right? And that makes sense because look at 80. 80 here is an acute angle, and x is also an acute angle. And you can see they look exactly alike. So from there I can say that angle x is equal to 80 degrees by reason of alternate interior angle. Now, what if I did not recognize that there are alternate interior angles? What if I know other angle relationships? The good news is, just like we knew before, that just like we knew before, that any time that I have parallel lines caught by a transversal, that special angles are going to be formed, that they're either congruent or they're supplementary. Okay, I'm going to redraw my lines, and I had my 80 here, and I had my x here. So let's say I didn't notice that they were alternate interior. What if I just know my linear pairs? I know that this forms a linear pair. This is a linear pair. This 80 and this angle here, they add up to 180. They are angles on a straight line. So if I know that, I'll ask myself, what can I add it to 80 to give me 180? And that just means 180 minus 80, which is 100. So I know right away that this angle is 100 degrees. That would help me because now I know that if I know the corresponding angles, I know that this angle is sitting on the same position as this angle. This one is sitting on the bottom. This one is also sitting on the bottom. And they're called corresponding angle. And I immediately know that corresponding angles are also congruent. So I can say that this angle is 100 degrees. And if I know that this angle is 100 degrees, I can then use my linear pairs to find this and find my x using this angle. Again, my linear pairs tells me that they add up to 180, and I can see that x is still equal to 80 degrees. And that's by reason of the fact that I use my linear pairs. So we use linear pairs, okay, to find this angle, and then we use corresponding angle to find this angle here, and then we use linear pairs again to find this angle. There's other ways that I could have found this angle. What if I did it this way? I'm going to redraw this so that we are not all over the place. What if I have 80 degrees here, I have x here. All right, what if I know that this 80 degrees here, that this angle is 80 degrees, and that this angle will also be 80 degrees, again, because this angle is corresponding to this angle. And then I use the fact that this angle now is vertical. This 80 is now vertical to x, so x is now 80. Do you see? This is the third way that I found this same angle. I found the angle on the bottom here that is congruent to the angle that I'm given by reason of corresponding angle. Their corresponding angle. And then I used vertical angles, so they're corresponding angles. Then I said 80 is vertical to x, so I know that x is equal to 80 degrees by vertical angle theorem. You see, that's 3 different ways that I've done the same problem. Now, what if I use a different way, maybe a fourth method or a fourth way to find this problem, to find x? I'm going to draw it again here. I'm going to draw my parallel lines, and I'm going to draw my transversal. Again, I know that this is 80 degrees and this is x. Now, I know that if this is 80 degrees, that this is also 80, and that's my vertical angles. Again, I know that this 80 is corresponding to x because they are sitting on the same position. This 80 is sitting on top of the parallel line, and this x is also sitting on top of the parallel line. And I know by corresponding angle theorem that x is also 80 degrees. Wow. So that's 4 ways that I found the same problem. Just knowing that every time a parallel line passes through transversal, every time a transversal passes through parallel line, that all the angles are related, either congruent or supplementary. I'm going to do one more way. There's more, but I'm just going to do one more of finding the same angles, all right? So I'm going to have 80 again and x here. Now, I know that the angle here and the angle here are supplementary. That's because they are on the same side, but they are not. They are on the same side of the transversal, but they are not sitting in the same corner. Look at how 80 sits on the bottom, and this missing angle here sits on the top. So I call that angle O, it sits on the top. So I know that they are not congruent, that they are supplementary because they are same side interior, or just consecutive interior. They are back to back. They add up to 180, so that gives me 100. Now that I know that that is 100, do you see that I can easily find that this one will be 80 degrees because these two will add up to 180. So my x again is 80 degrees. I've done these 5 different ways, and I hope that you will find one of the ways that I did it to make sense to you. And I did this so that you can see that there's no one way to do this problem. There's so many different ways, but you have to know some of the angle relationships. Even if you don't know all of them, even if you didn't know, see, even if at the beginning you didn't recognize the alternate interior, see, we use other ways to do it that you didn't even need the alternate interior.